Hello everyone, welcome to Learning Gym. Today I'm going to demystify the 11 plus exams. I know that there are lots of confusion as to what it is, how and when you should prepare for it. So today I'll help you answer those questions to enable you to know exactly what needs to be done if you would like your child to sit for the 11 plus exams. The 11 plus exam is also known as the Selective Eligibility Test. But first, let me talk about the different types of secondary schools that are in the UK. Firstly, we have the state schools and the private schools. The main difference between the two is that the state schools are free. However, you need fees in order for your child to attend a private school. Other differences include the inspection agencies. While offset inspection reports are publicly available, these are for the state schools. Those of private schools are not normally made known. So let's now talk about the state schools. These can be rather confusing as there are so many types of schools. But generally, the state schools can be broken down into comprehensive schools and selective schools. The main difference between these two is that all comprehensive schools are all ability, which means students of any academic ability will be able to be enrolled there. It is mainly based on catchment area. But a selective school, which is one where students are accepted based on their academic ability through a test known as the 11 plus exam. Incidentally, this is also how private schools select their students. Just remember that private schools are fee-paying whilst grammar schools are not. A short note about comprehensive schools is that they can further be divided into community, foundation, and academies or free schools. The main differences between these schools relate to funding, governing, and adherence to the national curriculum. As I mentioned, an entrance exam will have to be undertaken. If you would like your child to attend either a selective school, which is also known as a grammar school, or a private school, this exam is known as the 11 plus exam. Let's learn more about schools that focuses on academic ability. What would you expect from them? Obviously, you can expect selective schools to strive for challenging academic pursuits more vigorously than schools that do not select students based on tests. So this means that a child would benefit from this environment would be one that embraces learning, challenging himself or herself, and thrives in an academically competitive environment. This is much like children who excel in sports and aim to win sporting competitions by vigorous physical training, which can be quite repetitive. In the same way, the training in academia is learning and practicing, much like everything else in life. It is worth mentioning that academic achievements from selective schools are easier to accomplish because most students that enter the schools are at similar levels in terms of their learning capability due to the selection process. This means that resources and teaching methods can be utilized more efficiently, as it only needs to cater to a narrower range of abilities, since students learn at a similar pace. The knock-on effect of this is that learning is quicker and more can be done to challenge the students, and as well introduce depth and breadth of knowledge and critical thinking. That is not to say non-academic pursuits are sidelined or neglected. Most selective schools are also renowned for providing a well-rounded education or for specific sports or ECA, just like non-selective schools. That said, it's important to know your child and your situation as a family to see which types of school are best suited for your child. Well, let's get on with more about the 11 plus exams, like when is it held? There is normally no fixed date for this exam as every school selects its own dates. Generally, the exams are held in Year 6, just after the summer holidays in September, October, or after Christmas in January, February. The second one is mainly for independent schools. So as you can see, there are lots of time to prepare intensely during the summer holidays, upon entering Year 6, and also during the Christmas holidays. Both of these scenarios are unfortunate, but considering that it's done only once, perhaps it may well be worth the effort. The results of the exam will normally be released before the deadline for secondary school application, which is at the end of October, so that if your child passed the exam for that school, you can put that school down on the list as one of your 6 options. But not all grammar schools release the results before the application deadline, so you need to check with them. And if you apply to an independent school, you best check with them as well, as deadlines varies, and so does results of the school selection. For state grammar schools, you will know the outcome of your application on National Offer Day, which is the 1st of March. Well, what does the 11+ exam comprise of? Let's have a look. Generally, the exam comprises of English and Maths papers. Some schools also have 2 additional papers called verbal and non-verbal reasoning. The English papers will have questions on grammar, spelling, vocabulary, punctuation, comprehension, and sometimes composition. The Maths paper will test on the whole KS2 curriculum, from number bonds to geometry to algebra. Verbal reasoning are generally word, grammar, vocabulary, logic puzzles. Non-verbal reasoning are generally number, picture, maths, logic puzzles. Let's talk about the stages of exams. Some schools may have 1 stage of exam, but most schools will have 2 stages of exams. If your child passes the 1st stage, then an invitation might be extended to attend the 2nd stage. Some schools, mainly the private ones, will hold an interview session as well. The 1st stage normally involves multiple choice questions, also known as MCQ, on English and Maths, while the 2nd stage generally involves written or standard form of English and Maths. Standard form means that there are no answer options and things will have to be written out in sentences for English and workings shown for Maths. English papers may also comprise of composition and comprehension. In most cases, these exams are based on the Key Stage 2 curriculum, not outside of it. The tricky bit is that schools generally complete the Key Stage 2 curriculum at the end of Year 6, but you'll have to complete the Key Stage 2 before Year 6, ideally in Year 5, so that your child will have ample time to revise and practice the 11+ papers. So who sets the exams? Basically, there are 3 different exam providers. They are the CEM, the GL assessment, and the CSSE. They are mainly similar, but at the same time focus on slightly different aspects of the various subjects, or pose questions in different styles and formats. It is therefore prudent to practice questions that are specific to the type of exam your child is taking, but at the same time be aware of the different styles that questions could be asked, just in case some questions are tweaked in a style not normally encountered in the practice. In this way, your child will not be caught off guard. The first thing that you would need to do if you should decide to send your child to a selective school is to check if there are indeed any selective schools that are close to where you live. That means you should live within the school's catchment area. And how do you find this out? There are a few ways you could do this. You could go to the websites of the National Grammar School Association or the Independent Schools Association to find out where the schools are located. Another website you can go to is the Good Schools Guide. 2 other websites you can use is Google Maps and property websites, as they tend to show where the primary and secondary schools are located in relation to your home. Whichever way you choose to find a school, always confirm with the school directly to determine that you are within its catchment area, because the catchment area changes from year to year depending on the popularity of the schools and also in relation to any changes in policies. If you do not fall within a school's catchment area, see if you fulfill any other criteria, like perhaps sibling preference. If the school you have in mind is a fee-paying school, do check that you will be able to maintain the fee payment. Keep in mind that there will be additional payments on top of fees like trips, uniform, food, etc. Also, don't forget to take into account that fees may increase during the time that your child is there. They may be there 5 years at the minimum, and that is a long time for fees to remain stagnant. To ease the financial burden, you might want to check with a fee-paying school if they have any bursary or scholarship schemes that you could apply for. Step 3. The next step is to check to see which exam provider the school is using for their tests and prepare for that. This is to ensure that your child is familiar with the format and style of questions, but I must add again that you should not disregard other exam formats and styles because style and formats may vary a little, so you'll want to ensure that your child is versatile in attacking questions. Step 4. We come to the revision. Most people would start revising intensely in year 4, but I think it's important to be consistent from day 1. This would avoid rushing through the syllables towards the end, as well as gradually building up the concentration of a child towards having to sit down for about 45 minutes to an hour for each test. This would kill 2 birds with 1 stone, learning and exam techniques. Before I move on to the next step, I'd like to talk about mock exams. Throughout the revision, do ensure that your child has mini tests that builds up to the time frame of the actual exam. Once in year 6, do enroll your child for mock exams. This is important for your child to get used to an exam setting. It may not be good enough to just practice papers at home, as your child will need to get a feel of how it might be like on the actual day with hundreds of students also taking the exam. Your child will need to get used to first-hand experience of dealing with the stress of not knowing how to answer a question in an exam setting, while seeing others filling in answer sheets and flipping pages. Your child will need to learn how to disregard the implications of this and to just focus on his or her work. How and where you can sign your child up for mock exams. Some grammar schools do conduct mock exams, so it is good to sign up for those. Do check out the school's website for more details. You could also sign up at private tuition agencies, but the fees for these will be significantly higher than the mock exams conducted by grammar schools. The mock exams at grammar schools are hugely popular and slots are limited, so that as soon as a booking date is announced, be sure to wait by your computers on the day of registration to secure your child a place or places. It is wise to book places for MCQ and written papers if they have them, for a date far before the actual exam and another closer to the exam date, but not too close, so you can see the progress and work on areas that needs attention. The results of the mock exams at grammar schools will be analysed and conveyed to you on areas where your child needs coaching as well as how your child has fared amongst those who took the exam. Bear in mind that not everyone who takes the mock exam at schools would have the intention to go to that particular school. In the same way, a lot of people also take actual exams as practice for other schools that they really intend to apply for. So don't be deterred by the sheer number of people who sign up for them. It is important that you visit the schools that you intend to apply for. Most schools will have an open day which you do not have to book for. This is normally held from June onwards. These are major events where the school will prepare prospectuses, and they will be given out to guests as they arrive. You will also be directed to one of their tour groups to be shown around the school. The good thing about the guided tours is that you get to ask questions to the students who are showing you around with their first-hand experiences. The downside is that sometimes you will have to wait for others in the groups before moving along. However, if at any time you like to leave the tour group, just let the guides know about it so they wouldn't have to look for you. You may decline joining a tour group from the beginning. A map of the school is normally given out, so you will be free to tour the school yourselves. During the open day, there will normally be a head teacher's talk. Some schools might also have a cafeteria open, so you can sample the food or have a quick dinner, as these tours normally run into dinner time. What will be shown during the tour are the various departments, such as English, Maths, Science, Geography, Languages, D&T, Arts, Music, Drama, and so on. Most departments will showcase some of the work that they have done by way of students' work or mini games that your child can engage in. A few departments might take up a lot of your time, notably the science departments, physics, chemistry, and biology. There may be lots of hands-on experiments that your child can participate in. They will showcase some of the experiments that they do at school, and most of them who visit these departments will want to try them out, so do expect long waits and crowds. The D&T, arts, music, sports may also take up lots of time. Some schools also offer day visits, which have to be booked. This would offer the benefit of observing how the school is like during a typical day without the fanfare of putting on a show. Hopefully, after these visits, you will have a better idea of which school is best suited for your child. A short piece of advice about visiting schools is to space them out over 2 years. In this way, you will not be overwhelmed and have enough time to think about the schools you visited. Another benefit of doing this is that you don't have to take too much time off work in Year 6 over a short space of time, as most open days are held from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. All the way up to 7 p.m. If a school is really a good contender, you may always visit it again in Year 6, and you can easily rule out the ones that aren't a good fit. Step 6. Make the application. Once you've decided on the schools, you can go ahead and make the application. Just be mindful that some schools may require you to register for the 11+ exams more than a year earlier. You'll need to think about the potential schools at least 2 years before your child sits the exam. I can't emphasize enough that you'll need to check all deadlines from the website of the school of your choice. In some cases, you'll need to fill in a supplementary form, which is basically a registration form that needs to be completed before taking the 11+ exams. This needs to be completed if you like your child to take the mock exam and/or list the school as one of your choice if it is a grammar school. For private schools, there may be interviews that you might need to register for as well. And remember to also practice for the interviews. For some independent schools, there will be offerings of bursary and scholarship. Basically, bursaries are means-tested financial awards that covers partial or full tuition fees based on a family's financial situation. This can also be applied for anytime during your child's school career should your financial situation change for the worse. Scholarships, on the other hand, are awarded based on merit and skill, based on potential or particular fields like academics, music, etc., which means that it is not means tested. It also generally means that some students who hold bursaries may also hold scholarships because they perform well in certain things. The next step is to submit your application. If you are applying to state schools, you will have to apply to your local authority by 31st October in the year your child starts Year 6. You'll be able to list 6 state schools in any order that you like. You can include comprehensive and selective schools on your list. But it only makes sense that you list a selective school as a first choice if it is a school that you like your child to go to. This is because most selective schools are oversubscribed, so that if you do not list it as a first choice, your child would be highly unlikely to be offered a place there. It is worth mentioning at this point that most grammar schools will release the results of the 11+ exams before the deadline of the application, so you'll know if you should list that school down as a choice. Though it's not always the case. Private schools will have their own admission procedure and deadlines. Some schools will call your child down for interviews if they make the grade for the 11+ exams, but it is not always the case, so don't be discouraged if your child is not called for an interview. The procedure varies so much between schools, so always keep a positive mind and make sure you're following the school's procedures. Step 8. Offers and acceptances. For state schools, offers will be made on National Offer Day, which is on 1st of March. Normally, you'll have to accept an offer within 2 weeks. For private schools, offers might be made from mid-February onwards, and acceptances ought to accompany a non-refundable deposit by mid-March. You may put in an appeal for a school of your choice if you didn't get it, but you'll have to check with the school for their procedures. Chances are generally slim, but I just had to highlight it here to make sure that you know that there is an option to do that. So in summary, there are a few steps for the application procedures. Identify the schools, check the exam provider and revise for that. Go for the open days and school visits and register your child for the 11 plus exams. These may not necessarily come in step 3 and 4, but it could be the other way around. Then take the exams, make the application, and then you get your offer on National Offer Day. Applying to selective schools or independent schools can be very complicated, depending on how many schools you are looking to apply to. So, the best thing to do is to keep track of things, and the best way to do it is to create a time graph. Here is an example of a mock exam timetable time graph or timeline. You list down the dates clearly and the time and the venue, so you'll know where to go. What you can do is to put a tick on each of the events that had already taken place. And here is another example of a timeline graph or a flowchart for the Tiffin and Sutton School 11 plus exams. I've placed the left-hand side Tiffin School and the right-hand side the Sutton Schools. So at any point in time, when you refer to your table or graph, you know which schools you're supposed to go to and which schools the dates refer to. And that concludes my talk on the 11 plus exams. I hope I have shed some light on it and that you know what to do if you like to take this route. I think this information should be made to everyone. If you do like my page, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. I intend to post more videos about 11 plus exams. And I'll see you next time. Bye.